Well, we got a fantastic panel here, closing big and strong, talking about the future of the industry, both in your viewers' perspective and in technology too. We're talking digital here. And since the comment was made earlier today, I don't know what digital is. I feel like it's our duty as the digital panel to at least attempt to define that. So, starting with Jen, please, each one of you, introduce yourselves and tell us and tell the audience how you, within your organizations, define what digital is.
No big deal.
No.
Right? It's just an easy, softball question to start the panel.
We're starting
it's great.
easy.
Hi, I'm Jen. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me and the rest of the NBC Sports Group. Listen, digital is what you want it to be, right? It's the great equalizer. It's the new revenue stream. It's the new way to gain audience. It's a channel that you can activate against people's day parts and reach them in ways that you were never really able to do. So it's what I love about the field. It is what you think it is. It will do anything that you want it to do. And it's a really cool opportunity and space for us to be in.
Hi, I'm Jeff Gilbert. Thanks as well for inviting me. I'm the guy that's not like the others up here. I'm actually a vendor. I work for Verizon in Digital Media Services Group. We do the streaming for Verizon. So when I hear digital, I think of my customers having actually a one-to-one relationship with their customer. So it's sort of like the impact more than the specific technology. You can think of it as internet, TVE, over the top, whatever it is that you want to call it. But for the most part, it's how you get to your customers without going through cable or satellite.
TK Gore with Comcast Sports Group Chicago. I won't try to refer to the D word as one of our fearless leaders said, so I'll try not to mention it, but I still think it's the Wild West. Jen and I are up here kind of representing NBC Sports Group. I see it as entertainment. I see it as on-the-go technology, but mostly FOMO. I mean, that's what really drives me, fear of missing out. I think fear of missing out as a consumer, but also fear of missing out as a media outlet who's supposed to be providing fan engagement and entertainment and information.
Michael Spirito, head of digital and business development at the Fox Regional Networks and at Yes Network prior to that. Digital is evidently that part of our business, which is still relegated to the last panel. I could go into a definition of what it is and what platforms it's delivered on, how our media is delivered, and what's classified as digital in that regard. But the reality is that everything is converging, right? And what was television yesterday and what is television as presently construed today has morphed. And it is, as was said previously, what you want it to be. It's a way to engage with your followers. It's a way to get your brand in front of people when they're doing other things than watching your pregame or postgame or live telecast. And it's a way to basically be in touch with the generations that are ever evolving how our business model is constituted.
Sure. I just want to stay with you, Michael, to go into, and I don't want to dwell too much on this topic because it's probably more of a rights conversation that happens at a much higher level, but can't have a digital panel with talking about live in-market streaming when it comes to regional sports networks, and Fox has taken a pretty big step, especially with baseball. So from a digital perspective, how is a regional network on Fox Sports Go different from just FS1 being on Fox Sports Go? How do you approach that? Are there any differences between the two in your
well, you've hit on an important distinction, which is as much as we want to say that digital and traditional is morphing into one thing, the rights are still very different. Right? So for each league with whom we negotiate, each team with whom we negotiate and have rights, those the classification of what is digital, what is social is different across the board. So when it comes to something like obviously our main product, our holy grail, our live game, that is of utmost importance to us to get on these advanced platforms. And that's come over the course of a long period of time. I can go back to 2009 when we first streamed in New York, Yankee games within the market, and it seems ancient at this point in time with how we authenticated and how we even marketed to those customers in terms of where we are right now in 2016. But this is the first season in which we're streaming live baseball games. We're 2 seasons in now with the NBA. We'll see where we are with the NHL. Hopefully we're close there, but you need the rights to be able to do that, and we need to be ever present on every platform on which the consumer wants to interact with our content.
TK, obviously the rights are, based on league, based on team, whatever you're working with. But from your interactions with people on your digital team or even with fans in general, where in your point of view, from Chicago's perspective, is that kind of in-market streaming conversation right now?
First, I thought you weren't going to ask me about live streaming, right? You promised me no. I think, obviously, we want to deliver it. And
sure.
I think Phil talked about it earlier from the Chicago perspective, and David talked about during lunch. I mean, we're hopeful, too. We want to have those rights. We want to be able to deliver them. We just finished our second season of Chicago Bulls live streaming. We actually streamed the Bulls back, and it seems ancient, in 2010 when they first played LeBron before he left Cleveland. We streamed the first round of that playoff series. So we did have some key learnings there, but we're hearing it from consumers. We're constantly asked in social media, which can be challenging from a rights standpoint, talking with leagues, talking and working with the mothership in Stanford. How do we respond in the right way where you want to be honest, but you don't want to tip your hand to anything? And right now, what we're doing is we're focusing on the rights we have, and we're promoting the games that are just available on broadcast right now. And it's, I'll be honest, for a lot of us who don't have that, it's a real challenge, and you want to be able to deliver it because, as Tom said earlier, you want to be able to give fans, what they want because, sports is tribal, as we know.
And Jen, you're working with many of all of the regions in the NBC umbrella of regional sports networks. How does that do you find that conversation differing by region, or is there kind of just a general kind of want for it from fans?
Yeah, no, it's across the board.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you're going to have teams that perform better, and you're going to see results in one market vary to the other. But I think across the board, the more people, touch points, platforms we can put our product on to reach our fans, it's what everybody's saying. Yes, we want to be in that space, and we think we can play well in it.
Okay, great. No, you had something?
I was just going to add to that. I mean, we're still in the relative infancy of this business, even though TV Everywhere is technically 8 or 9 years old. As far as where we sit in streaming games within the marketplace, it's still very new, but there are still very severe challenges, right? It's still not rated to our liking, so we don't have a number that we can sell to our sponsors across all platforms, which is going to be very important to us going forward from the business model perspective. And there's still very severe marketing issues that we're running into because some affiliates, we don't have the rights, some we do. So the leagues obviously aren't all the same as far as the rights are concerned. So there's still this discrepancy for the consumer as to what they can get and where they can get it.
Okay, great. Jeff, I wanted to bring you a little bit in here too. From your perspective, rights play a role as far as mobile is concerned, but you guys launched Go 90 not too long ago. Just for the audience, can you kind of update us on how that's going? And I know that's not purely a sports play, but what are some lessons that have come out of that for you guys that might be applicable to the people in this room?
So Go 90, if you haven't seen it, is really a mobile-first application. It's Verizon's foray really into the content business. We're doing more curation than production with it, but there's a variety of different elements. Some of it is live event sports that we're offering. Much of the content is snippets, so a lot of highlights, but there are some full events that are going on. I think it's a little bit early to give you lessons learned. It's really, I think Verizon's approach into this and to many of the technologies is to be patient. And that's the way the wireless network grew. We invested heavily into wireless a couple decades ago. It took a long time for that business to mature, but then we were in the space when it did, and now it's really significant business for Verizon. And I think the same thing is true here. We've recognized that there's a space, people are using their mobile devices for everything, and sports is one of those things. You've all demonstrated here, there's a lot of loyalty. People want to see sports wherever they are, and so giving them the ability to see those kinds of things in mobile. One little tidbit that I think most people don't actually know is the reason it's called Go 90 is that if you take your phone and you rotate it 90 degrees, that's typically how you watch media. And Brendan told me to remind everybody that, by the way, when you're filming something, turn your camera.
You should also go 90 then, too.
And then, go 90 and then record your video content that way, otherwise you get the little sliver when you're playing it. So I think, in short, I don't know that we've learned the lessons. I think we're experimenting and we're trying to see where it goes. We know it's going to be big. We've got roughly 100 million subscribers on wireless right now, and so getting into the space and curating and finding what works and what doesn't work is a lesson that's going to be learned over a long time.
Okay. I'd like to get a little bit into workflows here, and TK, I'll start with you. Specifically at CSN Chicago, what falls under the umbrella of your team, if you will? Is it the website, social, what else, and how do you guys kind of plan a day? How often do you meet? What's your kind of day-to-day look like?
I mean, communication's key, obviously, in all of our networks. I mean, you're talking every day within your various departments, cross-department, to everybody, to be synced up for that message, whatever the day's themes are. Obviously, today, I think it was said earlier, we treat every day like it's an A event, like it's our Super Bowl. Tonight, the White Sox are on our air, so we're all about the White Sox. You can't forget about one of the other business partners, the Cubs, who's having a fabulous year, but you have to focus on what your sort of A-level product is. In terms of, our group, and I promise I'm going to try not to say the D word. I mean, it's pretty much web, it's mobile, it's social, it's anything new, it's any social media. I mean, we do a lot with the little, and I think every person out there in the RSN world, can attest to that. You wear a lot of hats. I mean, and it takes a certain type of person to sort of work at RSN, but almost perform well, because you have to get used to juggling, learning how to prioritize, and everything that you're doing. And the thing about with what we're doing in the media space, I mean, it crosses every particular department in your organization, in your network. So you have to be talking to everybody. And I think I was really impressed with earlier about Fox, about, I guess, in Arizona, where they took the sales folks and they sat them with the producers. I mean, I'd love to do something like that as we kind of rethink our office space and other things to kind of really promote that collaboration. But I mean, every day is different. That's why it's always engaging, and hopefully that gives you a snapshot a little bit when in Chicago. So.
Okay. And Jen, it was also said in one of the earlier panels that each of your networks are basically their own unique local company. But I'm sure from your perspective, there's also a balance where you want to strike where everything feels very CSN or feels very NBC. So where's that balance? How much do you leave people room to experiment individually, digitally, because something might work in the Bay Area that might not work in Philly, or vice versa? How do you strike that balance?
It's such a good question. It's something I deal with on a daily basis. Listen, it comes from the top down. You guys were lucky enough to hear David earlier, and I believe it really does come from a fundamental mission statement, from a perspective of what are you trying to do here? You're fundamentally, I don't care if you're in San Francisco, if you're in Boston, Portland, or anywhere across the country, your job is to deliver value to that fan. And so if in Chicago, TK has an initiative where he can partner with a local company that's really looking to develop audience in a different way on social media, if I can go to Philadelphia and say, hey, listen, I need you to create some original video on demand content. If I can go to San Francisco and say, we need to engage on a podcast strategy. What we're trying to do is leverage these networks as living, breathing petri dishes of innovation, little talent labs within our networks, and be able to sort of play off of each other, fail fast, succeed, and tweak and move on, leveraging the resources too of the mothership, and being able to support them fully, where, go experiment, have fun, give me those results, prove me an ROI, but we're not going to let you fail. We're gonna be there to support you at the end of the day.
Michael, how about you? I mean, you were in the front lines of a regional network at Yes Network, and now you're kind of stepping up to the broader umbrella. What's your take on that?
Similar. We operate for 44 teams out of roughly 10 networks around the country with 10 operations. So at each of those 10, we have a small digital team. And I consider those folks, contrary to their titles, digital content producers. And one of the first things I did when I took over this post 2 years ago was to make sure that those folks were embedded with production, that they were not off in some silo, that some people in the company didn't understand, that they weren't interacting with the AEs, they weren't interacting with our production folks. So they were involved in the process. They were involved in the game notes for each series or each game. They were involved in the production meetings, and they were responsible for producing content and programming all of our channels, social, web, anything that we might be on in a manner in which we got our brand and got our content out there as efficiently and as well as we possibly could, given our resource constraints. So that's how we set it up. Some stuff will come from the top down in terms of what Mike and his team are doing on the production side, what Jeff and folks are doing in corporate, what I might have to say about something, but by and large, they're left to their own devices and the relationships that they've built with the teams that they cover and are tasked with getting the best content that they can get.
Okay. TK, you had something you wanted to add, or?
No, is that just one particular digital team that's across all the networks, or does
each team has a digital lead and various other digital resources. Some networks are certainly larger than others and have more folks in production that think with a digital hat. Some folks, it's just a one-person shop.
Yeah, I was only going to chime in on what Jen said, because what's great is with NBC Sports regional networks, we could try something in Chicago, and if it doesn't work or you fail fast, you share it with Philly or Bay Area to say, hey, this didn't work. Or if you find something that you're onto, we'll try to go and scale it and share those kind of key successes with others and learn from it. We've done it always from the get-go as we started working closer together back when it was like, the Big Five, and then we migrated more so underneath NBC Sports umbrella. So it's great to kind of share those findings. Even though each market is so different with those team relationships, we help each other out all the time.
It was said earlier today, and obviously this is true across the board, and it's been a mantra of the day, and that your live games are they're the king, the queen, and the jester at your RSN. So, are your goals the same? And when Mike Connolly from Fox earlier today said, if it's not serving the live game, then why are you doing it, or why are you producing it? Do you view the kinds of content, be it VOD or live tweeting around it or whatever it may be? How do you define success, Jen? And are the goals the same as what a shoulder programming would be on the linear network?
Yes and no. I hate to sound like a broken record, but the fan really does dictate the answer to that question. Okay. What is that person doing when they wake up in the morning? Are they getting an email newsletter that preps them for the night's game? Absolutely. Bread and butter is the broadcast. I mean, that's where you're going to make your money. That's where you're going to get the most eyeballs. That's where you can partner with the team to really activate some cool stuff. Tap into databases that we wouldn't otherwise have available. But what we get to do in digital across all of our verticals, provide that instant access, that sort of constant thread of game at 7, but this happened at 10 o'clock in the morning. So goals are really to follow the fan wherever they are. But yes, absolutely, if we can push tune-in, if we can push engagement to those games, that is success to us.
Okay.
I agree 100%. But the way I look at it is, if you take the average Fox RSN, have about 250,000 people following it on various social properties. And that's double what an average live game will do over the course of any of the regular seasons that we have. So those are engaged people, and we don't have our heads buried in the sand thinking that they're not going to be doing something else while they're watching a game. Well, we'd rather have them on our Facebook page, on our Twitter feed, on Instagram, interacting with our product and programming those channels in a way that is cohesive with our live telecast, in a way that has some tie into it, in a way that is promoting tune-in, that is promoting what's going on the field, on the court, on the ice.
Jeff, with the clients that you work with, how do they define success when they come to you? What are some of their pain points, and what are they looking to accomplish?
Well, uptime.
Sure.
They want to make sure, we're in the business of taking content that's already been created and making sure that it's available anywhere in the world. And in some level it sounds easy, in some level it sounds very difficult. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and it's mostly because people come to the content from any number of places, whether it's a connected Samsung TV or a Roku, or they're watching on their iPhone when they're on the subway. There's any number of ways that they're going to be connecting, and our customers look to us to say, look, here's our content, you figured out. And so we take the video, we transcode it, we translate it, we put it where it needs to be, we deliver it anywhere in the world. And so their success to us is how many hours of viewing were there. And we track all that stuff. That's how we build, but we track it in general. So the ex-post is like, we look at it, all right, how many events did we run? Were there any errors? Did things finish correctly? And how many people saw it? We've got an ops team, a live ops team in Ashburn, that's doing lots of events, because part of it is, hey, did we start on time? Someone's got to push the button. The trains have to run. Did the ads run correctly? That's another element. Our guys are saying, okay, we're doing ads in the middle of these events, so we got guys on headsets talking to the producers, saying, all right, time to go to break. So we're a production from that perspective. We're part of the production sense, but it really comes down to how many people were watching for how long, and that's how they measure their success, and that's how they measure our success as well.
Okay. I wanted to get a little bit into content creation and distribution. A lot of what you guys are doing is on a VOD basis. But as you said, TK, you wear a lot of different hats, so it's not as simple as just taking this minute-and-a-half clip and going Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, website, blah, 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 blah. So in what ways are you are you going into a day saying we need to create X number of contents for each of these platforms, or do you get what you get and then you mold it from there? How are you kind of feeding all these different channels with the type of video content that's appropriate for the platform that you're putting it to?
It's a great question. I almost thought you were going to say something like a parent, like you get what you get and you don't get upset. But it's we don't have this team. I was on a panel with this Blogs with Balls conference a couple weeks ago here in Chicago, and great group. And I was on a panel with Bleacher Report and Fan Nation, and they're talking about having people like 10 deep focus on Instagram only or Instagram International.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this, I know we have the Comcast moniker and we have NBC Sports behind us, but at the end of the day, we have a very small team that does a lot. So I think we come into each day, every day is different. It's all about the teams and the content we can develop. And if you think about it, when we kind of started in this business, and my boss, Phil Bedell, alluded to it earlier, it was very much the reverse. You talk about this holy grail of live events. We built this business on news and information. I mean, say if I came to anybody here and said, hey, I want to start a new 24-hour multi-platform network, it's just going to be sports, news, and information, and by the way, I'll add live games later. You'd think I was crazy. You wouldn't give me any investment dollars. So what we've done is we've built this infrastructure for news and information, but we've become very savvy on doing it in a cost-effective way. At first we just repurposed linear TV, then we got into more of the VOD and development for social. But while we still have some live content, we're still waiting to develop the other. So, and by the way, you create this sort of over-commoditized information business within a competitive world against newspapers, other RSNs, incumbents. So, at the end of the day, people want information. So that's the real challenge for all of us is returning, getting that engagement, doing those clips, monetizing it, and then programming around the live events. And that's why I always remind people that the RSN world is one of the most complex worlds out there. And until you work in it, until you really know it and how you work with distribution partners and the rights deals, it's tough. But once you understand how to feed those fans and what you can go do and not do, or maybe get your hand slapped in something you do and you shouldn't do, you kind of go from there. And we learn every day. So every day is different. It's not like we have this game plan and we have to do 5 clips for Instagram, something for Snapchat. So we look for whoever's going to raise their hand on the team and kind of go out to that particular battle.
Michael, what kind of content are you guys stressing, and what's the differentiators between some of the platforms for you? Other than just playing with kind of post-game interview quotes and things like that, what are some other content that you found that really resonates?
Well, I think that leads nicely into the fact that Facebook really is our best platform. And the products that they're developing are tailor-made for what we're doing. I think it was Jeff who earlier said we have 20 other hours in our schedule, but we're really looking at pregame, game, and postgame, and that's what we do. It's our bread and butter. So the types of products that this entity, this platform in Facebook, who heretofore, we didn't really know if they were friend or foe. But this year they've given us Sports Stadium, they've given us Live. These are fantastic tools for us that we can supplement what we're doing in a pregame, that we can supplement certain things that are happening during our live game. And we can then go out and sponsor these entities as well and actually make some money and show a return on this bad word, digital, that heretofore we haven't really been able to show a great return on. So to me, that is the most fertile ground for us, and it sets up perfectly for what we do on a nightly basis.
Sure.
So are they a friend or a foe?
Oh, they're absolutely a friend. Absolutely a friend.
You don't get worried about putting so much content on there that people stop coming to you? I mean, I think about this all the time, whether they friend or foe, because here we are building up these social networks where people are, it is a true walled garden. And by the way, I worked at AOL back in the day when they called it a walled garden, and yeah, that's what we wanted to do, I'll be honest. But I look at where Facebook is, and it's fascinating. You have to work with them as a publisher, or you're not going to be able to engage, you're not going to be able to drive tune-in, but at what cost? And I think we all ask ourselves as we go through the motions of doing it. And it's fascinating right now because the world they dominate, and when you put Facebook and Google together in terms of mobile, it's pretty scary.
I think, to add to that, like, first of all, we bought AOL, so So we're in the middle of that as well, and I think a lot of my customers are
The
concerned.
two of us work there, and one of us bought it.
Right. Our concern is or the customer's concerns that I've heard is like they don't want to give up the user's eyeballs. And so great, you'll get them for the event, but when the event's over, now they're on somebody else's platform. And so we've had a lot of our customers, both on the news side, people streaming news, as well as sports, saying, look, we want to have this guy, and then when it's done, we want to sequence some other piece of content for them. We want them to be in our environment, investigate this, et cetera. And it is a risk when you go to a social media platform to distribute your content for you, to say that, okay, you've effectively now given them your customer. You've got it.
Why is it a risk? That they're a distributor.
No, but then they're going to say, they'll find something else to do on Facebook when they're done with your event, as opposed to find something else to do on your website, in your app.
Our event's over at that point. I mean, we're in the live event business. So to the extent they're interacting with our brand and interacting with our product on a live or on-demand basis, as long as they are using it, watching it, sharing it, conversing about it, and we can make some money on it,
Sure.
I'm happy with it being there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the other 20 hours a day, I mean, I think that's really the question, and I'm just passing along what I hear from from the people that work with us, and they say that they really want to own the customer. It's sort of like prime access on regular broadcast television. They want to have the customer because then they can drive them ultimately to their prime time and then ultimately to their news, where they can make additional revenue streams off of them. And that's just something, I think it's a risk factor. It's just an interesting perspective to hear what you're saying.
I think our business is a little bit different in that regard because it is very event focused. And again, we sell our brand and our network to distributors as it is. The way I look at it in this domain, it's just another distributor in that regard.
I think just to sort of close a gap on it, where we're trying to activate on whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, developing original content for all these platforms, not coming at it as a brand. We're not coming at you as CSN Mid-Atlantic. We're coming at you from a personality-based, sort of talent-first, sort of a fan-to-fan, if you will, relationship, not B2C or C2C or B2B, I don't care what it is, using those social platforms, which, let's face it, that's where the audience is, especially during live games, to really have a one-on-one connection with our overall network from a personality standpoint. And then, to Michael's point, putting some revenue dollars behind it and really redefining the narrative of what engagement looks like, what analytics look like, what success looks like, not just on your site, but using these social platforms as something to amplify your audience. That's a win.
Okay. Michael, there's a nice transition into live social and its implications. I mean, we can mention Periscope, I guess, as a courtesy, but it's really Facebook Live is going to seemingly gobble everything up. So what are the potentials / threats there? And Jen, are you excited about what Facebook Live can bring to you, or are there a lot of rights spider webs that you're just trying to work your way through? I mean, how soon can we really see, RSN's really going deep and going, throwing Hail Marys on Facebook Live?
I think you're seeing it now
Okay.
for people that are experimental and innovative in this space. Again, ties in nicely to the conversation that we're having. There's going to be pros and there's going to be cons. You don't want to go all in. What if Facebook changes their algorithm? What if they decide to deprioritize live, which is a phenomenal product, but they've decided to go all in? Well, what's the next all in?
Yeah.
The next big thing for Facebook.
Yeah, once they feel good about VR, then
That's
that
right.
might be the
So
new
does it
thing.
shift all to Oculus? We were actually in Menlo Park during the Stanley Cup playoffs, which was a really cool engagement from a national perspective, where we can actually, as the national broadcaster, bring the Stanley Cup to the Facebook campus. We can also bring one of our local anchors down. We did a Facebook Live. He's playing Oculus. The synergies are just like off the chart in this, where it's, perfect storms of all time. But the space is there. It's happening. We're seeing unbelievable engagement. What I love about the platform is that we're playing with Facebook as a social tool that bleeds into our broadcast seamlessly. So our talent in CSN Mid-Atlantic, they will fire up a Facebook Live, and then they'll tease that and show part of it on the actual linear broadcast. So the back and forth between the platforms is totally seamless. You're following the user. We're, to your point, seeing a lot more people on Facebook than maybe we are watching the channel at that time. So you really need to consider the audience as a whole and, fish where the fish are.
Sure.
The one thing I'll mention about Facebook is, and it was back in February, Jen and I paid a visit to Facebook with some of the other market leads and Tom, and what's great about it is, and to your point about Fox Sports, the mothership, working with the regionals, much like for the CSN regionals out there, we get to work closely with the mothership for, strategic relationships, intel, the centralized service, but NBC Sports will go out and do a lot of these deals around NFL, around Barclays Premier League. So, we're able to work with Facebook and experiment with Sports Stadium when it was first coming out with our particular talent. They connected us to Instagram. They're there to kind of help us and guide us with Facebook Live or instant articles. So, it goes back. It's friend, but you kind of keep your eye open about trying to understand where they're trying to go. Last week, a Facebook executive announced at a conference that text is dead, and I had to chuckle because text will never die, but I could see the point they're trying to make with where they're trying to go for video, but it was a great conversation to have. So I think to Jen's point, each of the markets, NBC has sort of said, go out there and experiment and do what you can, and it goes back to, again, it's all around the live event. Just like we talked about the Lakers and Inside Access show, everything is kind of, again, pointing to those particular team partners, which, again, drives that viewership, whether it's live stream or broadcast end stream, depending on where your rights are.
Michael, do you have any additional thoughts on live? Or?
We're doing across the regions 4 to 5 a week per region, right?
Okay.
So 40 to 50 live videos a week, which is a good number. And again, the rights issue, of course, comes back into this, right? We're not doing anything on field, on the court, on ice. It's kind of what's happening in the background, what's happening around the stadium, what's happening in the booth potentially with some of our talent who get more excited about the product. And I think for our talent in particular, they see who else is using it. They see the type of views people are getting. It becomes sort of a little bit of a comparison for them, and they like using it. And we found that is the tool that's really gotten those who are less tech savvy on the side of experimenting more with new technologies.
Yeah.
I think it bleeds in nicely to the group that's here today, too. I would take a show of hands, but I would assume that everybody has a Facebook account in this room. You work on remote trucks, you work on studio production. It is the great equalizer in that everybody's on this platform. Now it's just a question of training, digital first or digital always sort of mentality when it comes to production, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales. So digital, another definition, is opening these doors to the more traditional sort of TV newsroom and how we're able to sort of retrain, and to all due respect to Go 90, I love don't go, how do we program for a vertical screen, which is a Snapchat component? Sure. How do we sort of, flip our thinking in terms of aspect ratio, knowing that these platforms they're gonna get bigger, and we got to prepare ourselves to program appropriately. So I love it for this group as well, as our talent who can see, so we can pinpoint the less tech savvy and go from there.
Sure. And I imagine one of the really big challenges is one of the benefits of this social and all these different platforms is it gives you the opportunity to spread your message outside of your silo. A lot of things, if you're trying to drive tune into your post-game show on the game, you're already kind of preaching to the choir almost. But then on the other hand, you talk about the resistance of trying to get someone to even click out of a native Facebook app, and that's a difficult pull. To get someone to go from their Facebook to fire up their television set is probably even another step exceptionally difficult. So that's the kind of tough game that these guys are playing in. Any questions from the crowd for the folks here on stage? You look like you got a question there, Dan. It's always the person on the other side of the room, right?
Hello. Yeah, for this group especially, I've always wondered, when you're looking at a game, you pick your favorite game, right? So I'm a Chicago guy, and I've loved the Blackhawks forever, and I don't know how you're going to make that Shields-White Sox game an A game tonight, but good luck with it.
Chris Sale's starting. There you go.
Oh, he's got Sale tonight.
Done and done.
All right, that will be an A game then. If you've got 20 cameras on an event, call it a hockey game. I don't know if you got 20 cameras, but you got at least 12 or 16. You got 16 cameras all wired into a truck. You got a producer deciding what is going out one stream out of the 20 options. Do you think there would be value to unlock in some future for a digital platform to make the primary view selectable on the client side? I think there's huge, but you guys would know.
When you say the client side, you mean obviously the fan, the consumer, right?
The fan side.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's technology out there right now. I mean, I know of a mobile company right now, Kisui Mobile. They're doing some stuff around the Copa America that allows you to choose your camera angles right now. So I think people want that. I mean, is 20 enough? I mean, seriously. I mean, it's like empower the people and what they want to watch. So I think absolutely. I think right now, at least speaking, just wearing my Chicago hat, we just want to first kind of get where they are and get some rights, especially with baseball, and then hockey, especially with the teams here. I mean, you know, being a Chicago fan, fans want it, and let's start from there, and then let's kind of go from there, but I'll let these guys answer that question as well.
I'm going to disagree. We've done the StarCam before. We've experimented with various of our distributors and digital partners in doing that, and what we found basically is that the consumer, particularly when watching a game, doesn't want to be the director too. They've used it in various instances here and there, but the interest level dissipates very quickly. We certainly did not see any sort of a commercial model to build around it. It was a nice to have, but it still needs a platform. It needs a lot of bandwidth. It's fairly intensive to actually offer it as a product, and we certainly didn't see the return based on usage. And we've tried it a couple times. We did it with a camera focused on Derek Jeter with one of our MVPD partners in 2008, 2009, and I've seen some other tests outside of the Fox networks in the marketplace, and it doesn't stand up.
Was that, and I'm not disagreeing,
Yeah.
but was any of that factors the sync? Was that any of the issue, or did it go beyond
It's not
that,
as
you think?
interesting,
Okay.
frankly. Even in a soccer match, if you have a Messi or Ronaldo cam, they're having bursts of activity, but it's not something you necessarily want to watch for 90 minutes.
Right, there's no context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, another question?
I'm not trying to be difficult here when I ask this, but have you guys, through your analytics, found any positive statistics that show that people who are becoming more our target audience, who might be the ones who are the cord cutters or the cord nevers, who are online maybe looking at some of these things, are you guys, whatever you're putting on those sites, actually resulting in people subscribing to our channels in cable where they have to have authentication to watch our events?
I think that's the $20 million question in the room. It's probably something all of us on this panel get asked on a daily basis, which is, can you measure the online activity in real time, to drive tune-in, which I believe is your question.
Well, not just tune in, but we're all worried about the audience that hasn't bought our cable.
Sure, yeah.
And is this actually an encouragement that we can actually point a finger at and say, what they see online is making them want to spend the money to become a subscriber to see our air?
I think what we know is that these consumers ages 7, from the second you sort of learn this motion, they're in the digital space. They're consuming content in a much different way. So even if you can't answer analytically what the conversion rate is from social to linear, to from this site to a pregame show, you know that that's where your audience is. So the more value you can offer up to that consumer from the age of 2 on, they're going to build loyalty. You're going to introduce them to the talent in a way that they've never really been able to interact with before. So it is kind of a value proposition in the future, and putting our money and our eggs into this basket where that's where we know the audience is today. And guess what? The 18-year-old, as somebody mentioned, is going to be in that demo soon, and their spending power is going to be fairly robust. This is also a generation that is used to purchasing online. I mean, you go to Amazon, you can go to Facebook now and buy anything that you want. So the proliferation from, a fan is just a viewer is no more. So if we can play in that space and ultimately prove our value as a local broadcaster, we need to be there today.
If I can add a perspective, Verizon, we have Fios, and so we're an MVPD as well. I think the experience that we've seen is that people want to see content where they choose to see it. And that's sort of the message, and we can hope that they come to the most profitable method of viewing content for us, but they're going to ultimately decide where they go. I do think there is good news in that, actually, in that there is way to monetize them. Alternatively, advertising, I mean, we see dynamic ad insertion gives you an opportunity to get a boost for your CPMs, actually, because you're delivering ads that are effectively customized to them. We've seen, certainly my customers have reported a 3-fold increase in CPMs when they do dynamic ad insertion. So you potentially lose the annual subscription fee, but you have a potential to get a whole lot of additional revenue from into your other pocket through advertising, if there's a way for you to get the rights to that and put that in your pocket. So ultimately, I think viewing of content's a pretty democratic kind of thing, and people see it where they want to see it. And I think the message is get it in as many places as you can and find the customer where they are. And otherwise, you may end up with nothing at the end of the day, and they'll go find something else that happens to be where they are.
I was going to say, I think it's a great question, but the challenge for some of us is, to your point, we don't have it in every place we want to have it. So the question is that VOD clip or is that article or that social media message going to influence somebody to go and subscribe to Comcast, Xfinity, or subscribe to Verizon Fios? So I think as we develop more of these packages and get rights, let's kind of continue to address this. But I will tell you, the people I talk to that are cord cutters, they dearly miss sports. Of course, I'm talking to sports fans. It's kind of part of my community, but throughout the country, and they haven't really figured that out, but I don't think they have another means to go and buy anything right now if they want to watch a particular team through a sort of RSN. Now, I'm not talking playoffs or national contracts, if you will.
Have you guys found that designing your content on the air in such a way that you can then chop it, post it, and make it palatable and interesting to the person online is a way of kind of getting that same attention? I mean, the one thing that we all talk about at Fox, and Michael, you're aware of this, is the Katie Nolan effect, so to speak, where she gets oodles more viewers in her snippets of content online than she does on the actual on-air product. And can there be that reverse effect if we can put that good content there? Will they actually go try to find it in the linear channel?
Well, that type of cutting
in a pre and post game type.
That type of cutting and programming for these channels, I think, is very specific to that type of content, whether it's an interview show or a variety type show, or like Katie has, or a highlight show like a Sports Center or something like that. The actual game itself, in addition to the myriad of rights issues that we have, it's a game. We're not going to produce it any differently. We're not going to cut it differently for dissemination onto other platforms. But I think we're seeing a show like Sports Center change. In the way we consume highlights is changing. We can see highlights almost immediately on so many different platforms. We're watching those type of shows differently. We're programming our other hours that aren't live games differently because of that. So when it comes to Katie's show, yeah, we're Pete and his team out in Playa are certainly using that type of show in that way and getting it into every channel that we can and having a community around it, and that's certainly helped her success.
I think it's a great show. I'm a big fan of Katie Nolan Garbage Time. I think it's built for digital and social, and I think in many ways we're now finding success in building things for digital that the folks who are sort of in charge of linear TV want to put that content on there, which is fascinating to kind of watch that role reversal. And by the way, we're also going out and monetizing it. But I think, and I remember I was on a panel last August with Pete, and that's when that deal kind of came down. And I think we all cheer for successes like that. How this groundswell of appeal for Katie Nolan kind of came out of SI and crossed over to you guys to Fox and what you're doing. So, and also helps to have like Bill Simmons on her side too and interviewing her and kind of boosting her profile.
I think Katie Nolan goes to your point, which is personality driven. I mean, you guys at NBC get a lot of traction from Men in Blazers around soccer, and that's because those are trusted digital first sort of personalities that already have kind of a community that they've built in. They've got fans. So it's weird kind of seeing you that one-on-one factor is such a huge part of this universe, be it in a Facebook Live or be it in the kind of content you're creating, right? Okay, cool. I think we're running out of time. We'll just wrap things up real quickly with each one of you. Just give us one quick thought on what's new that's coming down the line that you're particularly excited about. It can be smart TVs, it could be VR, it could be messaging apps. Fill in the blank. Real quickly before we wrap up, what's exciting for you? Start with you, Jen.
Not because you just said it last and it's top of mind, but messaging apps for me are super, super interesting. You consider where the audience is when they're watching a game. Yes, they're on Facebook. Yes, you're going to check your Twitter feed when something explodes and you need to know what the hashtag is. I'm watching a game, I'm texting my friends. I'm getting a text from, across the country on my personal phone. So what happens with the next proliferation of Facebook Messenger, WeChat, or whatever it is, that we can get in front of an audience that is so used to communicating with their friends in an organic way that doesn't have a social sort of network tie to it? Well, seemingly they do, but you don't have to know that. How do we get in front of that audience and really, sort of join the global growth that is messaging apps?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm seeing high quality video or higher quality video is coming out. There's, our networks, it's a one-to-one relationship, so if you can push your 3 meg feed up to a 6 meg feed or even higher, then the view is stunning. We've done some stuff with Apple TV that can handle this kind of thing natively. We've seen some tweeting, people saying, look, this is just the way to watch television. So I think there's ways to build brands so that people recognize that, wow, this is an immersive experience, and we've really seen a lot of excitement around it.
TK?
I think more augmented reality. We are doing it now, and I know the last panel I talked about the virtual versus augmented reality in terms of studios, but I think we're going to get more of it with social media. Jen mentioned messaging apps. I mean, I'm addicted to Twitter. I can't watch live sports without Twitter. I once went to a White Sox game with Jim Corno Jr., who was sitting up here, and I think he was yelling at me because I had my head down in my screen instead of heads up, watching the game or looking at the screen. But it's just, I'm a 43-year-old who operates like a millennial, so I like having that instant gratification of social. So I think more things that are tied to augmented reality with stats and more things that make the at-home experience even better. It's a reason to kind of be at home, and that's why you see a lot of these stadiums trying to cater to more fans and doing a lot of these things on site, whether it's augmented reality or fantasy or whatnot. So
You're breaking the mold, TK. Michael, you.
Given the amount of live product that we have across 10 regions and 44 teams, it's what virtual reality might be able to bring to the in-home experience. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. I'm definitely erring more on the side that it's going to be a bigger thing than 3D ultimately was. But I'm very curious to see where that ends up.